Hello friends, welcome back to story time. Today the story is about Magic Tree House, Buffalo Before Breakfast. Magic Tree House, Buffalo Before Breakfast by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 5. Sunlight and Midnight. The wolf had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. Teddy snarled and barked. Annie rushed forward to grab the little dog. Suddenly, the wolf stood up on its hind legs. Yikes, said Annie. She leaped back. Then she and Jack started to laugh. The fierce wolf was Black Hawk wearing a wolf's hide. His head came out through a slit near the wolf's neck. He gave Jack and Annie a little smile. That's a great wolf suit, said Annie. Why do you wear that? Asked Jack. The wolf is the most powerful hunter of the buffalo, said Black Hawk. When I wear his skin, I feel his strength. Wow, said Annie. Black Hawk looked at his grandmother. May I show them the buffalo now? He said. Only show, said grandmother. Do not hunt. We have enough meat today. She looked back at Jack and Annie. Lakota never take more buffalo than we need, she said. That's good, said Annie. Black Hawk handed his wolf skin to grandmother. Then he ran to the grazing ponies. He climbed on his. Then he herded two ponies, one black and one yellow, over to Jack and Annie. Hi, Midnight. Hi, Sunlight, said Annie, naming the ponies. She patted their noses. Annie, whispered Jack, how are we going to ride without saddles or reins? Just hold on to their manes, she said, and grip with your legs. Watch. Annie threw her arms around Midnight's neck. She slung her leg over the pony's back and pulled herself up. I will carry Teddy in the back, Annie said. Jack picked up Teddy and slipped him inside the leather bag. He handed it to Annie, who hung it over her shoulder. Teddy's head peeked out of the bag. Arf, he barked. Giddy up, Midnight, said Annie. The pony started to walk away. Wait, said Jack. He turned to Black Hawk. He had just a few questions. Black Hawk let out a wild whoop and took off too. Jack took a deep breath. He threw his arms around Sunlight's neck. Then he slung his leg over the pony's back. The pony started to move. Wait, said Jack. He hopped on one foot, trying to keep up. The pony stopped. Slowly, Jack pulled himself onto Sunlight's back. He gripped the pony's mane. Then he carefully reached up and pushed his glasses into place. He looked over his shoulder. Grandmother was watching. She nodded at him. Lakota people admire those who do not show fear, Jack remembered. He liked grandmother. He wanted her to admire him. He let out a wild whoop and Sunlight took off like the wind. The whoop made Jack feel braver. He held tightly to Sunlight's mane. They caught up with Black Hawk and Annie, and together they all rode through the tall grass. Shadows of clouds swept over the plains. They looked like giant dark birds spreading their wings. Black Hawk's pony stopped at the top of a grassy slope. Sunlight and Midnight halted right behind him. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. Before them were thousands and thousands of grazing buffalo. Chapter 6 Stampede. Wow, whispered Jack and Annie together. Black Hawk looked silently at the grazing buffalo. Hand me the research book, said Jack. Annie lifted Teddy out of the bag. Then she slid the book out and gave it to Jack. He found a picture of a buffalo herd. He read to himself. The true name of the buffalo is bison. At the beginning of the 1800s, there were 40 million bison on the Great Plains. 100 years later, there were less than 300. Almost all had been killed by white hunters and soldiers. Jack looked back at the vast herd. As far as he could see, there was nothing but buffalo. Now Jack knew for certain they would come to the time before the white settlers and soldiers had arrived, before the end of the great buffalo herds. I have been on many hunts, Black Hawk said, his eyes still on the buffalo. Were you scared? Said Jack. Black Hawk shook his head. You're really brave, said Annie. Black Hawk smiled proudly. I will show you how a brave hunter moves, he said. He slid off his pony. Wait, your grandmother said not to hunt, said Annie. Plus, you don't have your wolf suit. I'm not afraid, said Black Hawk. I don't think you should go down there, said Jack. There is no grown-ups around. But Black Hawk was not listening. He began creeping on all fours toward the buffalo. I have a feeling something bad is going to happen, said Annie. Jack had the same feeling. He looked back at the book. A bison can weigh 2,000 pounds and stand 6 feet high. If one becomes alarmed by a hunter, he might start running and set off a terrifying stampede. Jack looked back at Black Hawk. He was creeping closer and closer to the herd. Jack's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, "Come back!" But he didn't want to scare any of the huge, fierce-looking animals. Keeping his eyes on the Black Hawk, Jack handed the plains book to Annie. She slid back into the bag beside Teddy. Black Hawk stopped just as he was passing the nearest buffalo. His eyes squeezed shut. His nose wrinkled up. His mouth opened. What is he doing? Asked Jack. Achoo! Black Hawk sneezed. Uh-oh, said Annie. The huge buffalo jerked its head up. It made a low, moaning sound. Then it pointed its horns and charged. Watch out! Cried Jack. Black Hawk threw himself out of the way of the charging buffalo. A ripple went through the herd as other shaggy animals looked up. Suddenly, Teddy jumped out of Annie's arms. He landed in the tall grass and ran toward the buffalo. Teddy! Shouted Annie. The dog tore down the hill. He bounded along the edge of the herd, barking furiously. "Teddy, come back!" cried Annie. She slid off her pony and ran after Teddy. Jack tried to see Black Hawk. The boy was still dodging the running buffalo. He looked tired. Jack took a deep breath. "Go to Black Hawk," he said, nudging Sunlight with his knees. The golden pony charged down the slope. He ran between the buffalo. "Black Hawk!" Jack shouted. Black Hawk started running toward Sunlight. The buffalo swerved behind him. Sunlight slowed as Black Hawk got near. The boy threw himself over the golden pony's back. He held onto Jack as Sunlight veered away from the buffalo and ran back up the slope. "Where is Annie?" Jack cried as they reached the top. "There," said Black Hawk, pointing. Annie was surrounded by buffalo. Calm buffalo. She was patting them and talking to them. The buffalo near her had stopped running too. The ones beyond those started to calm down, then others, until all the buffalo had stopped running. They began grazing again as if nothing had happened. Thanks for watching the video. Continue the remaining chapters in my next video. Thanks again.